How you doing, guys? We got a 2004 Sienna with a specific concern. Check engine light is on and the heat is weak. That tells me it's a thermostat, but we do have to verify it, and I'll show you a very easy way to verify it. We got the keys, we have the scan tool. Let's go to the car and we'll check it out. And this over here is our beautiful Sienna 2004. We've actually done a timing belt on this not too long ago. A good customer of ours. Let's go check it out, and we'll see what we see. This key is strange. It's an aftermarket key over here. Start the car. I'll hook up our text stream over here so we can show you guys how to diagnose thermostat problems. Wow, would you look at that? Check engine light is off already. Alrighty there. Let's see. I'm gonna turn off the heat. Let's power up the scan tool over here and we'll take a looky-loo. Come on, scan tool. This is the best part. The aftermarket scan tools are always a lot faster than the OEM ones. This is text stream and it's very slow. Very, very slow. So here's the basic premise of what we're going to do here. We're going to drive the car, warm it up, and see what the temperature is after the car is warmed up. If this thermostat is partially stuck open, it's not going to reach the operating temperature, and you're going to see it. It's a very simple diagnosis. Kind of rules out any other issues with the heat. And I briefly checked this earlier when I came in. It did have a code for a thermostat, so this one is cut and dry. But you always have to verify. You don't just throw parts at a car. It takes 5-10 minutes to verify, but a very long time to explain to the customer why their car wasn't fixed because you were in a rush. Let's put it this way. Never rush. Spend more time on diagnosis, less time redoing things. So let's check for codes here real quick. Once this thing loads up, it's very slow. There we go. Coolant thermostat. Coolant temperature below thermostat regulating temperature. 128. Now, we're going to take a look at what happened when this actually happened. This is called the freeze frame data. Kind of like the snapshot of the moment the code set. So key things we're going to look at here. Coolant temperature. We have coolant temperature at 160. Sometimes you have engine runtime, 267 seconds. We were going 71 miles an hour. Highly doubt that we were not fully warmed up. You see the intake air temperature is 55 degrees. So we're probably warmed up at this point. But thermostat is only 160. This gets, the computer looks at this in a different way. It looks at how much time has passed since initial cold start for the temperature to reach a specific point. If it doesn't reach that point, we have a problem with the thermostat. It sets that code, but it not always sets that code. Sometimes it does not. So what we're gonna be interested in watching is the coolant temperature. Right now it's at 122. We just started this car. This car has been sitting here for a few hours. So it's 122. We're going to go take it for a drive, and we're going to see how far we get with the temperature before we condemn the thermostat, which we actually do have in stock. So this Sienna has not a major story, but a small one. Why are we going warming up? This Sienna this is the first owner of the Sienna. had it for a very long time. They already have a newer car that they bought and whatnot. I remember when they brought it to me, this was the first time when we first opened the shop. He brought it here, recently moved in this area, and he's like, I don't have a mechanic currently, and I'm wondering, is this car worth keeping? It's gonna be our spare car, eventually going to one of his kids. I want it safe. I know it's not perfect, but I just want it relatively safe so we can use it around here and there, and my kids can use it when they need it. We looked at it. It needed a timing belt. It was an original timing belt. It was in really bad shape, actually. And we looked it over, talked to the customer. They decided it was best to keep it. Actually, not in terrible shape. Does need a few things. One of them is pedal is low. It works, but it's slow. It's something common with these, where the ABS actuator causes a slow pedal. He doesn't seem to mind it. So we're keeping going the way it is. It just, there's a bigger travel. It is not a soft pedal where the car won't stop, but it is nonetheless kind of a lower pedal, kind of like a 5th generation 4Runner. People complain about that. It is something similar to that. So it's warming up. It's getting darker outside. So we're not going to be driving much here. Lots of wind noise. These were the days where nobody cared about wind noise in cars, and cars were more focused on lasting and not really creature comforts. Now everybody would complain about this level of wind noise, so yeah, this is not ideal. Let's make a U-turn here. We're gonna head to the shop. Most cars, even in this cold weather, and again, our Canadian friends will be laughing, it is right around 25 right now, 25 degrees Fahrenheit. I know that's not very cold, Canadian friends, but to us it is very cold. So the car doesn't warm up as much, but usually if you run this car for 4 or 5 minutes at idle, it should get pretty close to operating temperature, even in this weather. But I'm noticing this one is not rising as it should. And the time, if you show them the temp gauge, we're not really there. We're just dwindling up. At this point, we should have been already up, and we're not. But we're going to continue to drive it a little bit. Maybe we'll take another spin here, and we'll head back to the shop and check out the temperature. If it's no good, it is simple. It needs a thermostat, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I just wanted to show you guys the verification. You need to do this verification, because if you have something else, or you just assume, or you don't even check the codes, or you don't have codes, this is a better way to check it. Just drive it. If it doesn't rise to the temperature, you're good. But if you have 190 degrees, 185, and we have low heat, you might have another problem. These things are so comfortable, regardless of the wind noise. I like these. They're comfortable cars. Just very functional. No nonsense, no technology. I mean, look at this. Well, like right here. Hey, it still works. Works pretty good. Basic HVAC controls. Nothing really to it. Oh wow, the temperature is actually coming down, folks. I'm pretty sure we have a stuck open thermostat. Whereas if you show them a temperature gauge, it's actually coming down as we drive, as the wind hits it. So yeah, that's not good. That's not good at all. So we need a thermostat. Not the end of the world. Quick job, simple. Coolant needs to be replaced, and that's really about it. Folks, we're gonna head over to the shop right now, because at this point, if the car didn't warm up at least to 170, 180, we have problems. You drove the car, you put load on it, doesn't warm up, thermostat is stuck open. And the telltale sign is when you drive and the wind hits it, the temperature gauge starts coming down, because you basically have zero regulation. It's coming down even more. And if we park it, let it run for a while, it's going to start coming up because there's no air hitting it. There's not high airflow. So let's head back to the shop. Let's say hello to the Tesla graveyard, which, like I told you folks, this only grows, it doesn't come down. See, they added one more. Oh yes. They move around, but there is always Teslas here in abundance. And it's kind of hard to see, but there is also another overflow of graveyard over there. It's only one Tesla right now. One time we had a Tesla over there that crashed. And all of a sudden I'm standing there locking up for the night, and the light starts flashing on this Tesla. So all of a sudden on their own just stop. Before we pull in the shop, let's look at our temperature. Even though this one is kind of cut and dry, but we still gotta do the due diligence. We have 158 for temperature. That's all we got. This is no good. It should have been at this point at least 180, 185 plus. So let's pull in the shop, let's drain the coolant, let's get that thermostat replaced real quick. And we're actually wrapping up here for the day as well. Parts didn't show up for the LS. You guys watched before. Still waiting for an answer on the Camry over there. And that's the life of an automotive shop. You're just waiting and waiting for an answer, waiting for a call. And speaking of that, we're gonna cut this video right here. And I gotta go call the customer, make sure they actually wanna do this thermostat before we proceed. So we'll be right back, folks. So we got the okay from the customer. We have one OEM thermostat gasket. Let's get to work. I want to set up this light. A lot of you have asked about this hood light. I don't have the exact name of it. Maybe we'll do that right now. Proline Electronics. Try to find some alternative similar lights, hood lights that work. Put them in the Amazon store if you guys are interested. But the first thing we're gonna do is drain the coolant here. So let's raise this car up and we'll start with that. All right, we got some old coolant sitting on the ground. We're gonna get something called pig mat or absorbent towels or whatever you want to call them. Just put it over the coolant and it just magically disappears. This is from another car. We're cleaning it up. Okay, let's drain the coolant. This is going to be right there. Let's see if I can reach it. There we go. Well, while that drains, let's look around this car. Sure we don't have any new occurrences. We talked about with the customer about this CV boot. Sway bar links are good. This side, these look like original controller arms, which are starting to separate. If you look at them right here, let's get them a good shot of that. See that they're starting to separate there. Not too bad, but we're gonna keep an eye on them. And then the other side, same thing. Little separation right here. That's not completely torn. I know about the rack and pinion, which is leaking a lot. You can look at it right here. That's a pretty good leak right there. We talked about this with the customer. He was going to keep an eye on the fluid level, and we'll call it a day. Radiator was replaced at some point, so it's not leaking. We're going to carry things around. Brakes are getting close. They're not actually. Wait a second. These brakes are going to need replacement. And it's really hard to see, even impossible to see for you guys, but these brakes do need replacement. We got rotors, a lot of rust. These are actually aftermarket pads, so they end up getting pads and rotors, shims if they want to go original. I usually recommend originals, but normally people will decide that. Not my car. You give the people the option. They can choose what they want. Then moving back from here, everything looks good. This is not the recalled, and this is something I want to mention. The customer will check for recalls. I don't do recalls here, obviously, but the recalled one on these, what happened is this cable would snap and break and fall off, but the recalled one would have a rubber cover right here because it's a completely different cable. This is not that. This is actually the old one. So we're going to talk to him about that. Let us look at the rear springs, which are notorious to break on this. This one is good. This one, surprisingly, and this is an original spring, is also good. Usually you'll see it broken right here. Rear brakes, rusty, very rusty, but good. They have some pad life left. They're extremely rusty. This car, I imagine, you can kind of see the rotor. It's very rusty. Rear shocks, rusty, but not leaking. Didn't hear any noises on the test drive. Overall, the rust levels are not extreme. You got some starting here. So remember, this is a 2004 car with basically rust belt miles. Doesn't have a lot of miles, 120 something thousand miles, but otherwise this car is actually not in bad shape. Valve covers are not leaking. See them very clearly right there. No leaks otherwise. Looks pretty good. We actually did, I think, cam and crank seals as well when we did the timing belt, but otherwise this car is in good shape. Not too bad. Just that rack and pinion, he already knows about it. We're not going to address it until it gets really bad. Just going to keep tapping the fluid. If you ever run into this, look, you do need to replace it. It is leaking, but if you keep an eye on the fluid, keep topping it off, you're at least going to prolong it until it makes financial sense to replace it. So let's wait for this coolant to finish draining, and we're going to attempt, and we're probably not going to attempt, because if you look right here, that is the block drain, and that is a very rusty block drain. There is almost no chance that's gonna come off. So I'm gonna give it a quick try. If it doesn't wanna come loose, we're not gonna open cans of worms, right? Remember we talked about this. No cans of worms. We're not gonna fix one thing and break another. So we're gonna give it a very gentle try. If it doesn't come off, oh, well, would you look at that? It's behaving. This one is gonna come off, so that'll make our job much less messy. So once the radiator is done draining, we're gonna let that drain because it came off, which is good. Very rare, never. If you're ever doing anything with coolant, you can try to the block drain. If it doesn't want to come off very easily with very little force, leave it. Don't open a can of worms. It's going to make your job a little bit more messy, but you can clean it. This breaks. Now we hold over the car for one more day because we got to get a new drain. Let's wait for this to finish, then we'll replace that thermostat and recheck it. It's very important that you recheck it when you're done, not just send it out the door. All right, so it's done draining. Let's get this done. Okay. Let's see what we got here. So the thermostat is right here. Looks a lot more difficult than it actually is on this beautiful 3MZ. This is my Milwaukee ratchet. It is possibly the best ratchet you can buy for automotive, in my opinion. They're not sponsored, this is my third one. They don't last very long with heavy use, especially if you have oil and stuff. They don't last very long. That's the only complaint about them. But the batteries last a very long time, and they're really strong enough for automotive use. So that's a good part of those. So, point out here. Okay, on this wire. Whenever you take a bottom air filter housing, just take it to your dumpster, and otherwise all this stuff will just end up in the air filter all over again. Alrighty then. Thermostat lives right here. See that housing right here, this black housing? That's where the thermostat lives. So, in order to get that, you're gonna have to pull this pipe. And this pipe in the old 3MZs used to be metal, now it's plastic. So you wanna handle it with care. Now there are many ways about to do this. We're gonna go the long route so you guys can see. We're gonna actually pull the battery out. We're gonna need to clean that throttle body. It's not looking very pretty. Oh yeah, that needs to be cleaned. So we're gonna clean that while we're here. I'm gonna pull the battery, probably pull the starter back. It's 2 bolts and the starter right here comes right out. And that'll make it easier and you guys will be able to see better as well. So let's do that. Rusty, rusty. Every single bolt is rusty. Everything is rusty. If you live in areas where there's no rust, this is a breeze. Now, there are things you gotta watch for and not just be hammer hands on things. And then you'll be drilling bolts unnecessarily just because you were not patient. Right. And last but not least, air routing contraption. We got this far. What we're gonna do is first loosen the starter. Just loosen it by hand. And I think this starter is original to this van. Potentially, just by how aged it is. There we go. Pocket screwdriver or the magnet is the best tool you'll have in situations like that. You drop something, you easily retract it and get yourself out of situations. All right, that's our starter coming back. I'm just gonna peel it back like so. Harness out of the way. Cam sensor, connector out. This does not want to move. Oh, it did move. There we go. This is the transmission ventos. Let's get it out of the way. This is a transmission shift cable. I'm going to loosen these. See, this is what happens when things are rusty. It's the bolt gets stuck to the socket, and you gotta beat it out. GBTI solenoid connector, and here goes that entire harness. This is actually clipped onto the thermostat housing. And get this off. Move it out of the way. Now this should give us enough room to get the thermostat housing out of the way, damaging anything. That's much better. Let's get this connector out of the way. Alrighty, that's looking beautiful. Now there's a 12 mil right here that holds this housing on. We're not going to disconnect the hose because there's no need for that. Once we get the 3 nuts that hold this out, this thing will swing out and we can actually get it almost all the way out of the way. Now the 3 nuts for the thermostat housing. 2 of them are easy, one of them is also easy, but you just can't see it. I'm using a magnetic socket here. Just loosening it by hand. Keep on it with the impact, but so make sure this thing is a little on the older side. Whenever you get a nut stuck on a magnetic socket, just find a stud and just tighten it on it, and you can get it off. There it is. Stud trick. All right. Well, let's pull our old thermostat. And I already see some dribble. Try to put a big mat underneath it and capture some of that. Makes the cleaning less messy later. So even if you drain the block, you still have coolant here. And that's just the way it is. Let's bend this out of the way. There we go. Guys can probably see the thermostat now. It's hidden right there, right here. That's your thermostat. So now you're just going to give it a wiggle. Sometimes the wiggles doesn't work, so we need to give it a gentle nudge. A little nudge. There we go. There's our thermostat, which is stuck open. You're not going to see it sometimes that it is physically stuck open, but it is stuck open. That's why we have this whole problem. So there is one thing that is extremely important about these that most people don't pay attention to. The daughter valve right here. See that little valve that moves? It is very important that this valve gets orientated in the right spot. And if in case you're looking at the OEM repair manual, which we do have open right here, I'll show you how to find that in every single thermostat. So, this is in case you're not familiar, this is TIS, Toyota Information System. We got Toyota Sienna 2004. Sienna 2004. We're going to go thermostat. Go to repair manual, thermostat replacement. Basically, going to tell you the same thing that we just did. What we're interested in, this is all the stuff that you want to remove. Remove this, there's your 12, your 310s. It tells you how to orientate your jiggle valves, what they're calling it here. Another name for it is daughter valve. So it gives you kind of a general area. When you get your thermostat, you want to install it in that general area. Something about Toyota thermostat, or actually Toyota in general, they love to send you stuff without its gaskets. So when you get the new thermostat, it has no gasket. And if we compare the old to the new, you can actually see how this one is stuck open. See how this one is stuck, it's all the way out, closed. This one is all the way in and stuck. So this is the only way you're going to see it. I hope you can see it well, that this is completely different than this, than the way it looks, especially at the top. See how this one is closed down, this one is up. That's basically the closest you're going to see. But something about Toyota, they never give you gaskets with stuff, so you have to buy the gaskets separate. So we're going to put our gasket on. right here. Beautiful. Making sure our jiggle valve, according to Toyota, is 15 degrees from, and this is how this gets confusing. It's basically, this is looking straight at it. You're going to line it up with the stud towards the front of the engine. I hope this makes sense. And let's go in the car and I'll show you. So when you look in the opening of the thermostat, down in there, this is the stud that they're telling you to line up your jiggle valve or daughter valve with, right here. I hope you can semi-see that. It's really hard to show, it's very tight space. But this is the one, so we're gonna put our thermostat in a way. Actually, I'll show you a better angle. Here, take the camera from your arrows. You see right here, this stud, and here's a thermostat, and we're trying to get our valve, which is right there, you can see it, right underneath that stud. Just set it down, that's it. Now let's say it like the repair manual used to say it in the old time. Installation is a reverse order of removal, which used to drive technicians really mad, because installation is never the same thing. What about torque specs? What about stuff? Sometimes they used to give you the torque specs as you were removing things, but it just makes you jump back and forth, and it's not a good deal. Let's start our nuts here. And I started this bolt and talk about it. I started it up so it lines everything up and we don't have to fight with this bolt to install it. This is done. Pull our diaper here. Clean the rest of the coolant. There's now let's get our harness back. First here, it is one of my biggest pet peeves when mechanics don't put things back where they belong. They forget sometimes, which is, I suppose, it happens, but when they're careless and they say this doesn't need to be there, that's the beginning of cars falling apart, in my opinion. Put things back the way they were supposed to be. Because if I leave this bracket off, it'll be fine, but eventually it'll cause a rattle, and that's not good. Well, we don't want to forget that. Car won't start after that. That wouldn't be good. So, I like how this went. Everything looks good. I think we are ready to reassemble everything back. Let's clean that throttle body before we proceed. Let's put the rest of this car back together. We'll start it, and most important thing, you gotta verify that you actually fix this thing before you send it back on the road. And that's what we'll do next. And by the way, if you're replacing a starter on 3MZ, this is, you already know how to, because that's where you all. Sits properly in the back. vacuum hoses. Toyota is usually very nice to put us a little yellow mark and a yellow dot. You know where this goes. Unless somebody replaces these hoses, then I hope you mark them before you remove them. Yep, that's all looking good. Mass airflow. Now let's put our battery back. Okay, over here, and over here. Always connect your positive terminal first, not the negative. And as a tip, if you want to check if your terminals are good, hold the terminal and try to twist it. If it doesn't twist, it's tight enough, it's good, it's secure. If it twists, then it's no good. You need to tighten it some more or figure something out. Give this one a turn test. Last but not least, battery hold down. Well, actually, not last but not least, still have one more thing, the contraption for the intake. Whenever you tighten your battery, make sure it's secure, it's not flopping around everywhere. And last but not least, okay, I lied, we still have the cover, so this is last but not least. And we're ready to fire her up. And then, this time, for real, last but not least, is the engine cover. Now, we're going to fill it up with coolant. We're going to start the car, rev it up 2,000 RPM, let it bleed the coolant and warm up. And we got to make sure that that thermostat is working, everything's good before we erase the code, and then she's ready to go. So let's do that. Let's fill it up with coolant, and I got this new coolant bottle. You'll see it on the Amazon affiliate store. This has a shutoff valve. So instead of having that stick that goes in here, you just shut it off here. The other cool thing is the fittings, they screw on. They don't just sit there in case. You know, they're just a little bit more secure. I wanted to give it a shot. For the Sienna, we have our little contraption here. The fill is not on the radiator, it's all the way here. So you can't really put the pipe straight. So you have to do this deal. This all comes with this kit. Works pretty good. The older kits, if you have one, don't just go to replace it just because. We go through quite a bit of these. They get just brittle with so much use, and you end up destroying them. It just screws on like that. That's it. Now, one thing additional we're going to do here, this just comes from experience. Once you put coolant here, this becomes too heavy, and this could snap and break. So I usually hang this right on the wiper. We're just trying to support it in case this gets too heavy. I'm trying to say this bungee cord is too long. Give it. There we go. Just in case this gets too heavy, this supports it. So let's go ahead and put our coolant in. We'll start this car, let her warm up, and double check with the scan tool that we actually have good temperature now. And it would be nice to remember to open the valve so our coolant will actually go in. Yep. We've had the coolant conversation before. Don't use aftermarket coolant. It's not worth it. This coolant is cheap. It's probably the same price as the aftermarket ones. It's just not worth it. Keep it original. Why change? You'll never be able to get all the coolant out of this engine, so why are you mixing and matching? Just use the original coolant, no question about it. It's not worth it. One thing about coolant, you guys might want to learn this. When you see coolant bubbling like this, making all this mess, you see it bubbling like that, if you don't see that when you're filling your car with coolant after you've done something with coolant, like if you see just a swirl and comes right down, you got something big leaking. So if you don't see that after doing some work on the cooling system, that bubbling, you got a problem. Stop filling, check, because you're going to just waste all your coolant potentially. You see that? That means air is being trapped and it has to escape violently like that because it has nowhere else to go. If it did have somewhere else to go, this will spiral down and it'll be filled up in a second. Guess it's a simple way to check if you left something completely off, or like if we put the thermostat with no gasket, this will be swirling down very quickly. Or if you left a hose loose or something like that. All right, I think she has calmed down. She's full now. Let's go start the exhaust. This is what we use in the shop in case you haven't seen it. We're in a closed building. It's very cold outside. We use this little nifty machine right here, which takes the exhaust, sends it right out the door. Just turn it on. Make sure this is closed. Loves to crumple up like that. Now we can run the car inside the shop without having to suffocate, or worse, open the door when it's really cold. Let's start this car. There we go. Purring like a kitten. Let's make sure we don't have any giant leaks. We do not. Looks good. So now here's the plan. We're gonna let this run until it warms up. And in the sake of, we work in an automotive shop, things need to be done in a timely fashion. You got other cars, customers, phone calls, estimates, edit videos for us that film videos on YouTube as well. So here's what I normally do in these cases. We get this little guy, which is a pedal depressor. This will help us just press the pedal, rev it higher so it'll warm up quicker, and then we'll be able to double check it. Basically simulates us going out on the road, driving the car. There we go. I'm gonna let it run until it's fully warmed up. Then we'll catch you guys to see how you actually verify this repair, which is very important. All right, it's all done. Bleeding, it's warmed up. Let's go look at the temperature. We have 205 on the scan tool. That is a temperature we never saw before. So I'm gonna call that mission was a success. This car now have heat, it's good. And before we wrap up the video, I want to say one thing about thermostats. Folks, thermostats are not a maintenance item. I get so many folks ask me, hey, can you replace my thermostat? Can you replace my thermostat? I try to explain, some of them insist, some of them listen. If you do not have a problem with thermostats, you're not really gaining anything by replacing them. It would be an absolute waste of money and time and everything. If you have an issue with thermostats, replace them. Better yet, better than replacing a thermostat preventatively, replace your coolant preventatively, because really what ruins thermostats is bad coolant. This engine, or actually this minivan, because this same engine on other models doesn't have this issue, has this common problem, but it's not something super chronic. And the symptom is a good one. You do not want your thermostat to be stuck closed, because then the car will overheat. Stuck open, you have low heat, check engine light, the code, which we're gonna have to erase right now. That's not a big issue, and that's usually the worst case scenario with Toyota thermostats. Don't buy aftermarket ones. They're not worth it, they're not expensive. Buy the original. This car is 18 years old, and we're replacing the original thermostat here. So that goes to show you, they really last a long time. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Really applies here. Folks, I hope this video is helpful, informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some other videos. And until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you. And you have yourself a wonderful day.